Hello and good morning. Welcome to Java with Josh on the Cyber and Security channel. And I just realized that I have no idea if I'm going through because I don't have my moderator in my ear. Give me a second while I double check myself. But it's good to see you all. Looks like there's quite a crowd in here this morning. And I do have audio. Awesome. So welcome to Java with Josh. This is March 3rd. It is the third day of the third month of 2022. And it's the third live stream of Java with Josh. So far, some of y'all have been enjoying it. We're going to continue through some more of the INE penetration tester student labs. I've been working on the penetration tester student course for the past 8-9 months now, alongside Alexi Ahmed, otherwise known as Hackersploit. Great content. Go check out his videos. But here on Cyber Insecurity, we try to make cybersecurity accessible and relevant to teach you no matter where you are, whether you're brand new or whether you're a seasoned practitioner. Hopefully you find something useful here across Neil's live streams, Jack streaming on Tipsy Cyber. He's now doing Jack of all trades on Monday nights. That might just be on his channel on as Sec IT Guy on Twitch. Tuesday nights we have Brent, who is doing the Python study course, and that is very helpful. He's just gotten through loops, I believe, and I think he's going to be getting into functions in this next week if he didn't hit it yesterday or a couple days ago. We got Brandon on Wednesdays covering all different types of topics. He's new to his role and has some great insights. Obviously, I'm going to be here on Thursdays. We have some people in our community who also put out some great content, not necessarily on cyber and security, but with some of our mods. So CyBeardSec, or man, I don't remember what he goes by on YouTube, but he DMs a D&D group on Thursday nights. Go over to Discord and you can sign up to get information about whether when he goes live, when Jack goes live on his own channel, Sec IT Guy, or when BSEC, one of our great mods, good friend, goes live on his DJ Twitch. All of those you can find on the Discord channel. And if you need access to Discord, hit exclamation point in Discord and it'll pop you a link. We got our bots working, hopefully. Chris, let me know if it's not. Otherwise, you're the man to fix it. If you have questions throughout what we're doing, throw a question or a Q colon and then your question. Please only send your question once and our mods will get it and they'll send it to me in Discord. And then I'll be able to answer those as we go along. I want this to be interactive. I taught right after I got out of the military at the Defense Cybercrime Center's Cyber Training Academy. And once the pandemic hit, I did this for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for about 18 months, teaching cyber through a camera, but I had teams. So if someone had a question, they could pop up and say, "Hey, Josh, what did you just say?" Or send me a message and I would work it all up. Cool. I would be able to go into more detail. You can do that here if you are on YouTube on the Cyber and Security stream. I know this is out in a lot of places. I have it going on Twitter. I have it going on my Facebook for my friends. I've got it going out on LinkedIn, and a bunch of people are participating in there. I don't have the ability, I don't have the special powers to interact with you in chat and also do what I'm going to be doing in a little bit. With that, I trust my moderators explicitly. If you spam, if you are toxic or misogynistic or racist, you're going to get banned. You're going to get kicked. And if you want to talk about that, come over to Discord, talk to our moderators. They are all over there alongside me, and we can talk about it there. But I trust my moderators explicitly, and their word is final. So it's up to them. If you want to bring it up with me, come find me on Discord or LinkedIn later. But I'm probably going to side with them. I trust them. They've been at it longer than I am, and I am the worst mod. So, yeah, I trust them. With that, let's get into what we're doing today. So I have, if you don't have, if you don't have the INE starter pass, then put in hashtag INE and you will get a link to where you can sign up for the starter pass. Otherwise, the rest of you, if you want to follow along, go over to myine.com or just ine.com. When you log in, it'll direct you to my.ine.com. And I am logged in as my basic level access with the starter pass. So I have the same things that you have. And we've got the same penetration testing basics where we were before. We've done the prerequisite labs. We did those the past 2 weeks. And I'm not going to do the preliminary skills in programming. That's Python and C# or C++, and then some Bash and PowerShell. Bash and PowerShell are hugely helpful. Go do those. If I was going to go into those, I would make a whole course, and I don't know, bug me later. Or we'll ask Brent. He's a PhD with a comp sci degree. So after he gets done with Python, maybe he'll go into Bash. Put those in content suggestions on Discord. So we're going to go into penetration testing basics. It's got the little link up here. I hope I'm sharing this. Looks like I'm sharing it. Tell me if I'm not, Chris. Otherwise, I'll continue. This brings up the new interface. Well, it's not a new interface. This is the interface that INE has been using for a while. We did footprinting and scanning. Did that lab last week. So if you want to see how to use Nmap and find endpoints on the server and what services are being hosted and what operating systems they're running, we did that last week. So go check out that video. This week, we're going to get into vulnerability assessment. And there's some good slides in here. You can check out the slides. I'm not going to bring them up. I will talk through a few things before I start on this Nessus lab. We're going to use Nessus to do some vulnerability assessment. I talk with my hands. If it distracts you, sorry. That's what I do. It's my process. Pull up the lab. Over here, if you're new to this lab environment, we have, and is my face popping up? Yeah, cool. We have a couple tabs over here. They don't look like tabs. They're like little buttons. So there's the overview, what we're going to do. So we're going to understand how to perform vulnerability scanning with Nessus. Nessus is a tool put out by Tenable, and it is pretty neat. We have a Kali instance with Nessus installed, and we're going to use it to scan demo.ind.local, which is just another machine on this tiny little network. It's us, it's them, and a router. That is the network. We need some login information. So Nessus is run as a SaaS. Well, that's not true. It's software that when you install it on a server, and then it's hosted on a web GUI interface. So you could put it on a server that's connected to the network as long as you have access to the ports where you can reach Nessus on your browser, and Nessus can reach whoever you're attacking. You could put it in the cloud. You could put it on your own machine. You could put it on a server somewhere. You could put it on a remote server. If you are doing a pen test on a client, then you could put it on one of their servers as long as you have access to the web GUI interface. And our username and password are admin and admin password. It's not too crazy. You can get Nessus Community Edition for free. All you have to do is go to Nessus, I think downloads, and get a copy of that. You will get a free registration key by registering. They just, I don't know, want to track things, add people to their email list, whatever. They don't spam me, so I've got no problems with it. You get that key, you can then activate your community edition, and it'll give you the login info as well, or you set it up. One of those two. I think you set it up. I haven't set it up myself locally in a while because I've been working with these labs where it is already set up for me. With these labs, you can pick different regions. They're hosted on AWS. So I'm going to use US East. It is like right in my backyard. You could use EU Germany if you are in Europe or Africa, Singapore if you're in that area of Southeast Asia, India if you are in more Central Asia. If you are somewhere in between those, pick a region and you'll find consistent access depending on which one you use. I don't know. Try it out. There's also keyboard layouts. I'm going to use English US. That's the one that works for me. I know some students complain. They go, hey, the keyboard's not doing the thing I want it to do. Depending on the region you pick, if I pick US East or US West, it's going to default to the English US keyboard. I do believe, and that's the one I'm used to. That's the one I've got in front of me. If you start typing in your lab and it's doing weird stuff, come check your keyboard layout, and you can change that after the fact, I do believe, or you can just stop your instance, change the keyboard, and start it again. I'm going to start this lab while I keep talking, and I've got a question from Taekwon Gong. Hey man, you've won some things. That's great. Hey, Chris, drop me a note if you're cool doing a giveaway later. I've got a Adrian Cantrell, all the things that we can give away. If Metasploit uses port 7337 for PostgreSQL, what do you do if the IDS catches it and turns off that port? What would be the next step? So if you are running Metasploit, you're probably running Kali, and your IDS is probably already going to segregate you from the network if it's an IPS. A lot of the stuff that we're running when we're doing pen testing, either if you run it and you get shut down immediately, that's good. That's a finding. You should write that down. Be like, good job. When I try to hit you with Kali Linux, like all the alarms went off and you caught me and you stopped me. But I do need to do this. So could you give me access again? If you're in a system where you're not supposed to be doing that, when you're in a system where you're not supposed to be doing that. So stop it. But yeah, if your IDS catches it and turns it off, if you have control of it, then go back and create a rule that allows you to have access. If you are doing a pen test and that happens, then go ask the system administrator and be like, hey, I need this port open so I can do my pen test. I'm not asking you to make anything less secure on your end, but my tools need to be able to operate on the network. We open up the lab. I'll share this one. It is Guacamole. It's a Oracle product that allows us to remote into machines hosted wherever, usually on a server somewhere. In this case, it's on an AWS instance. And let's see who we are. Our IP address changes with each time. So IPA, where this 192.45.17.2. And if we run an nmap scan on that network, it's a 2 with a 0 and CIDR 24. If the IP addressing doesn't make sense to you, or what we're doing with nmap, we've covered that in a previous video, or I could find some Network Chuck or David Bombal videos to explain IP addressing. Let me know if you need that. Hit me up in Discord. So we've got our machine that is the .2, right? Because it says it right here. That's us on this interface. We've got the .3, which is hosting a website on port 80, and my SQL server on 3306. We're also hosting on 3389, a web server. And then we've got just our router on .1. So let's also run let's do this. We'll ping demo.ine.local. We ping it. Ping is ICMP echo request type 8. We're sending out packets that have an ICMP flag asking the other the target to then send us a reply on ICMP. And demo.ine.local did reply, and it is the .3. So let's go check it out. We'll open our browser in the VM. We'll just type demo.ine.local. And it's OWASP Mirode. Consistently useful. And we will see it again in different labs because you've got things like SQL injection, where you can just try different types of SQL injection. That's a different video. That's a different lab. For now, I want to look at localhost and Go back over to the instructions, see where is it hosted. Solution says 8834. 8834. And it's not HTTPS, it's HTTP. HTTPS. There we go. Advanced. Accept the risk. Okay. Nessus is running on our own server that's localhost on our own 8834. It is HTTPS, but it does not have good certificates because we're hosting it to ourselves. So I know it's safe, so I accepted that risk. The instructions said admin and admin pass WD, I do believe. We'll check. Back on tasks. Yep. Admin pass WD. And I'll just have it remember me. It's not something you would normally do. I'm not going to save anything here. Welcome to Nessus. And it's going to do some scans. So I'm going to talk through those scans. But initially it says, hey, welcome to Nessus. Essentials, that's the free version. And to get started, we launch a host discovery to see if there's even any hosts to attack. We can put in IP addresses, IPv4, IPv6. We could use CIDR notation. We could do comma separated. We've got a domain. So demo.ine.local. It's going to do an initial check. Host discovery, and it found out it was the .3. That's good. So now we will start scanning on that. This is really easy tool, really simple tool. It does some great stuff. So we're searching for vulnerabilities. I'm going to use this scan because it takes a couple minutes to talk about what a vulnerability is. So we've got a computer like a server, a web server, usually, like that's what we're attacking here, is this demo.ine.local, right? It's a web server. It's hosting a SaaS tool, a web app. And because it's hosting that thing, it has essentially taken its building boundary and opened up a hole on purpose. So I like to think of a computer like a building. There's some standard ways in, like front door, back door, where if you have authorized access, you can just walk in. Sometimes, even if it's poorly configured, you can just walk in. That's not great. Well, what if you also have like a storefront there? A place where people normally come in, but you don't want them to have access to the cash register. You don't want them to have access to the stock room. You don't want them to have access to the offices, right? You want to control all of that. Well, how do you control access to different parts, even when you make something initially open? The places where someone could take advantage and either get access to your, limit your CIA triad. So affect the integrity of what you have, affect your do things without authorization, or why am I blanking on CIA triad? Integrity, authorization, and confidentiality. So take information they're not supposed to, change your information, or change your access. So could they DDoS you? Could they DOS you? Could they limit your access to your information or your services? Could they make those things unavailable to other people? Any place where we allow someone to affect our CIA triad, if you will, we have a vulnerability. It could be a misconfiguration. It could be a bug in the system, something unintended. It could be something that we do intend, a known bug that is being used maliciously against us. And all of those things we want to know about, because you can't make any decisions without knowing what is going on. Just like you don't know how you're going to dress when you walk out the door unless you know what the temperature is, whether it's raining, whether it's sunny, whether it's snowing, whether there's 40-mile-per-hour winds. You can't make good choices unless you know what the situation is, right? Same thing happens with managing the security of your infrastructure or your web app. If you don't know, then you can't do anything. So vulnerability scanning is one of the first steps in properly knowing what your situation is. This is penetration testing student, but you could be a pen tester and do vulnerability assessments. You could also use these tools in a pen test. I know some pen testers who have shown up and their statement of work was, you're going to run Nessus scans. And they're like, that's not a pen test. That is part of your vulnerability management. But you know what? For what you're paying me, I'm willing to do that because apparently you really need that. Some pen testers say, no, I am here for the big game, and this is not the big game. So our scan completed. It's a basic network scan, and it uses the CVS 3.0. Vulnerabilities are known. Usually, there is a vulnerability database managed by NIST and MITRE. NIST being a U.S. government agency, and they contract out to MITRE to participate and manage the database. But if someone finds a bug, if someone finds a vulnerability, it could be a pen tester, it could be a developer who's working on the tool, it could be a in-house security intelligence auditor, it could be a third party. You could go find a vulnerability, and then you could disclose it properly to the company, however their disclosure goes, maybe through a bug bounty, and then you could publish it out to NIST and MITRE. And if it gets accepted, then it shows up in the database, and there's a lot more to that, and I'll jump into it during our next scan. But let's now look at what this scanning did. So we had this host discovery scan. This was the initial scan. Let's click on the machine, and then it came up with some info. First, it just checked to see what the system settings were. And we can dive in more to what it found. But then it did a ping, just like we did. The host is up, and it replied, just like it says over here. So it did that scan. That's how it figured out what machine was demo.ind.local. And then it did this basic network scan. This is the default scan when you start Nessus, and you can go in and change your settings, change your defaults. But looking at it from the beginning, it does a lot of scanning, and it ranks your severity of the findings, either info, low, medium, high, and I believe critical. You can see it here. Info, low, medium, high, critical. These like wheels and dashboards and things like that. Super useful when you're trying to tell the story to decision makers, usually. People who are like, okay, we need to fix all this stuff. So this is what I'm going to be working on for the next week. Often you don't get to decide what you're working on for the next week. So you have to like convince the powers that be to say, yes, go fix that problem this week rather than upgrading to our newer version of whatever. That's fun. Personnel management. We have a ton of useful info here. It did that port scanner again. It found a web server. It found web server info. For example, it knows that it's running Ubuntu, what version of Apache is running. And if you wanted to really dive in, you can see how it ran the scan. Leave there. But some of this is really useful. If you wanted to do a quicker version of what we did last week, you could throw in the whole network like we did. Man, I kind of want to go back and open the other lab and open up Nessus and throw in the whole CIDR and see what all it finds in just its host discovery and basic network scan. All the footprinting and scanning that we did last week could be done very quickly by Nessus and give us some really useful feedback. One of the things it found here is this medium CGI abuses cross-site scripting. And I haven't talked about what cross-site scripting is, but according to self-reported versions in the script, the version of jQuery hosted on the remote server is greater than or equal to 1.2 and prior to 3.5, therefore affected by multiple cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. What does that mean? And how does it know? Well, did the scan, it found out what version of the software was running. Nessus has its own database. It says, hey, when you find this thing, if it matches these software versions, then that is connected to a CVE. So thus, we want to tell the person running the scan that information and let them make decisions based off of it. So it said it's version 1.83. There's a fixed version 3.5. And if you're like, well, but how do I know? How do I know? Down here, CVEs. It's got the CVE 2022 11.022. And what I'm going to do is copy this link, because if I try to go here inside my VM, it will not go anywhere because the VM is sandboxed. It does not have access to the internet. But if I pull up a new tab just in my browser, I can pull up the NIST page with the National Vulnerability Database 2022 11.022. And it says, hey, jQuery versions 1.2 before 3.5. And it's got all this info. You can see, okay, well, how did they get this information? Looks like it was disclosed by maybe Tenable. Say who came from GitHub. All right. Doesn't much matter. Came out in 2020. It's got a medium score for the base score, and GitHub gave it a 6.9 medium score. You can read a little bit more about it. Basically, this version of jQuery is just out of date. They eventually found out that it had this vulnerability and they made it update. So if you are running, if you find this on your system, then your recommendation would be, okay, well, either we need to remove access to that page that is, has the possibility for cross-site scripting, or we need to upgrade to a newer version of jQuery. And there's a lot of discussions that you can make in your vulnerability and risk management. But now you have that vulnerability and you have a place to start making the conversation, which is what vulnerability assessments are about. Okay, Stuns asks, what is the value of scanning as a non-authenticated user versus an authenticated standard user and an administrator user with Nessus? So those are all great questions. So we logged into Nessus just because Nessus requires a login to access anything, which makes sense. You are now holding this vulnerability information. You are responsible now as the owner of this information to properly protect it. So keeping admin and admin password as your password for it, probably lame, because you're now hosting the site out from your computer. You want to lock that down. If you can, put in two-factor or multi-factor authentication so that other people can't just log into your Nessus and see the vulnerabilities that your clients or your company has. Bad idea, right? So that's why authentication to Nessus is important, because these just hang out in here. Like I've got scans on machines with vulnerabilities. The work that we put in as a pen tester to find vulnerabilities, if you find out someone's hosting Nessus and you can just log in to their machine, find out like, oh, hey, they've got all these like disclosed passwords, they've got this outdated stuff, it's all vulnerable. Like, that's heaven. Like, okay, I will make my attack plan based off what I know is vulnerable and just go and dive in and have a lot of fun as a malicious actor. So you want to lock that down, not let people have access to it. Now, when you're running scans, there are different things that Stuns brings up. So I'm going to create a new scan. I know that we're running a web app. So I'm going to create a new scan, and there's web application tests. That could be useful. We did the basic network scan. There's an advanced dynamic scan. That one could allow authentication. There's even like WannaCry ransomware scan. I think the latest version also has Log4j. There's a lot of scans that they add in to Nessus. This is not like the latest version, but it's pretty new version. I'm going to go into an advanced scan. And just call it advanced scan. It needs a name. It needs a slight description. Keep it in my scans. That's fine. And we're going to go after demo.ini.local again. Needs a target. You can schedule that out. You can get notifications. There's all sorts of stuff. We'll go into discovery. And I don't need to ping the host. Well, sure. Yeah, don't need to ping the host. I know it's up, so just scan it. I'm not going to scan printers. We can go into port scanning, though. And what I want to do is, in this network port scanner, do a TCP scan. Just see if there's anything else I missed on this machine. A SYN scan is fine. No, just TCP scan. I'll get rid of the SYN scan. Some service discovery. This is all fine. Now the assessment. So here's the special stuff. So we could brute force some logins if we wanted. This will run Hydra in Nessus. Super useful. If you know where your login pages are, if you know some of your information for the login, that can make this way more effective. But different users are going to have different access on a web app. So you could have your general public facing site, and that looks like one thing and has certain access, like gmail.com. If you don't log in, there's still a page there. There's not a whole lot you can do. There's like some form data and there's a login. Well, you could brute force the login. You can look for SQL injection. You could look for cross-site scripting. You could look for all sorts of different things. And that's okay. That's not one column. Well, what if you can log in? What more do you get access to? How does that change the interaction with the web app? You want to test those things because someone could get access, and they could get low-level access, which could be free depending on your service. Maybe you give people access all the time because that's part of your model is you just make a login and you can get access to stuff. Well, once someone's in easily, like you want them to be, is there more that is then accessible that then they could hurt you, that they could affect the accessibility of data, that they could affect the integrity of data? You want to know all those things. Well, what if they log in as an admin? On INE.com, I've got a certain login as an INE employee. I've got certain access as just an INE customer with a different account. And then there's an INE admin, and there's different levels of that admin, and they get access to different things, and it can affect greater parts of the website. You want to know what level of access has what level or what access to certain vulnerabilities. So back to Stunz's question, if you want to really know all of your vulnerabilities, you need to either work in the different authentication, or you need to have that be part of the scan, be part of the test. So let's do a web app scan. I'll just tell it to scan the web app, and I'll leave it as a user agent. It'll start crawling from root. I won't change anything. Enable generic web tests. Yes. You could have it try different methods. Could have it pollute parameters. There's tons in here. I'm just going to save that because I just want it to run. Advanced scan and launch. It was up here. Now that's going to run, and it's going to take a while. It's probably going to take like 20 minutes. So I'm not going to let it complete. I just want to see if it'll give me a couple vulnerabilities. But that's how you set it up. It's fairly straightforward. It tells you some information. It's a pretty great tool. There's a lot of vulnerability scanners out there. This was to show you one. It's not like a know all the tools sort of lab. This is something that you should know about if you're going to be a penetration tester. This is something you should know about if you're going to be a security practitioner. That vulnerability scanners exist, that you can utilize them, that they're fairly straightforward. The only people out there making software that's really purposefully annoying to the user is like Vim, because you got to be elite and do something that doesn't make any sense. But everyone else wants their users to be able to use their tools in a useful manner. So it's come up with some vulnerabilities. These are all just information. It's like the Nessus TCP scanner came back and it just found open ports like we found before. Nothing too crazy. And it's not going to find more, I don't believe. It did some service detection. Also things we've seen before. Just dub and MySQL. It'll eventually go through and find some cross-site scripting, some SQL injection. How do I know? Because it's built into the web app right here on purpose. If you ever do want to test things in here, authenticated, what is it? I think just John and password. In the documentation, there's usage for Mutility. It's awesome tool. OWASP comes out with tons of these vulnerable web apps that you could host on your own machine, make them only accessible to your own machine. That way you're not letting all these vulnerabilities out to the public, but it'll allow you to test them, and they're fairly lightweight. You can throw them in a SaaS solution like Linode. You can throw them in Docker or a Kubernetes. There's free tiers on Azure and AWS and Linode, where you can just throw these in a Docker container and access them over the web. And that's fine, because if someone else has access to it, or you can lock down your access, whatever. Options. But the scan is still going. It's going to find a ton of stuff because it's supposed to. But I'm not going to stick around. If you wanted to finish out the lab, see what the results are, go for it. But I am going to stop the lab and jump into the next one, because I cannot talk about nothingness until the scan gets done, unless you start asking some questions in chat. Someone recently asked me if I would make a post about how to be a good mentee. And I will, but I'll take this opportunity. Finish with Nessus. We're going to get into web attacks. There's some great slides here. We saw some scans. We saw some options for web scans. If you're curious about HTTP methods, like, read all this stuff. This is great content, pretty good videos. Why they hate on Vim? Is that from you, Chris? Because I believe that tools should be accessible and useful to the customer. And as a developer, you should have that mindset as well. Knowing that you have to escape and :QW to get out of it when it doesn't tell you any of that in the first place, that's just, I think of it at this day and age as gatekeeping. And that's why I use Nano, because I can demo it to people, and if they get stuck, it tells you right at the bottom that Control X will get you out of there. And then it asks you questions like, do you want to save this? You can just hit enter for yes. Change the name. Easy, and it works. That's my little soapbox. Okay, there is a Dirb lab, I do believe, I thought. There, Dirbuster. So with web app stuff, you saw we've got a web app running, and there's different pages. The first place we like to start is finding out, okay, what is the software that is hosting the web server? we saw like it was that Apache server, and it was running what's the CVE say again? It was running jQuery version that was kind of out of date and vulnerable. Remember this? So we found those things. Well, let's dig into some more web app specific things. Let's find out what all the directories and pages on the web app on the website are. Dirbuster, nope, not the video. Not the video. Don't have time for that. Could have swore there was a lab. There. Dirbuster lab. I'll start this lab up. US East works for me. We're going to do some directory enumeration with the Dirbuster tool. It's another OWASP tool, another user-friendly GUI OWASP tool. We're going to attack another demo.ine.local. Will be a .2. It'll be a .3. It's got a word list for us to use. So websites are just files on someone else's computer. And the same thing that a cloud is just files on someone else's computer. That's what a web app is. Your browser is configured and set up to interact with the files that are served up from a web server. It's a beautiful melding of things to create a great environment for you. Web developers are amazing people, and I value them greatly. That's for you, Chris. For this 192.31.47.2, right? I'm sharing this. Yeah. Let's do an nmap scan. Just a 2 with a 0. It's going to show us things that we already know from that little map it gave us. That's the router. That's the target. That's us. Can you guess what's running on this machine? demo.ind.local. Hey, it's utility. Because it works. Okay. Actually, shoot. Let's bring that back up. demo.ind.local. Okay. This is our domain. We could also do just the IP address. It works the same because your fully qualified domain name is just resolved to that IP address. The IP address is really what you need in the end, and if you just put that, it goes directly. Because it's in our network, our router just directs or routes to it, which is nice and helpful. But if we start clicking around, you can see we have a / and then index.php. Interesting. And then equal page or question mark page equals login.php. Well, PHP files are files that the Apache web service uses to know what to serve up to your browser. Let's run this scan again. Attack SV and attack and a P80. I'll look at this web server and see what service is running there. If you've been following along, you know it's going to be an Apache web server. This HTTPD 2.4.7 on Ubuntu. So thus, when we see .php files, it's like, oh, that makes sense. It's running an Apache web server, and it uses the PHP file. What do those files look like? Let's do a view page source. Here we have the doc type is HTML public. This is an HTML document. There's tons of great places to learn what is going on this page, and they're free and they're amazing. I learned how to do all this stuff with Free Code Camp, how to create and make websites with just basic HTML, basic CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript. But in this page, we reach out for a style sheet, looking at text, CSS, You're like, well, wait, what's that? Well, let's duplicate this initial tab. Let's go to text. CSS. Styles, global styles, CSS. That's what I want. Copy, paste. Do this right. Boom. All right. So this is a file on our server at the styles directory with the global styles.css file. It's a CSS file. And it has all of the things to make your web page look pretty. Proper colors and borders, squares, buttons, fonts, all the great stuff. That's what CSS does. And it links back to our original document here through this link in the head of an HTML document. Voila. The body of the HTML document has all the structure. And with HTML5, it's got a lot of pretty useful stuff in it already. But it's still nice to customize, make things look really great with some CSS and some JavaScript. So that's what we're looking at here. So these are just files on a server. Okay, once you get that, then you're like, okay, well, I found through just a little simple enumeration looking at the source that there's a styles directory. And let's look at that. There's a whole directory in here with another file. Boom. What are all these styles? There's the global styles. There's more directories. Well, what else is in here? You could continue to like crawl through this and find out that, hey, there's a whole JavaScript. And some of this is not that crazy. If you look at inspect and then storage, then you could see like, like using Chrome. More sources. I want sources. There we go. Debugger. Here's some sources. We already know that there's a JavaScript directory. We know all this stuff is like in here because these are our files that are accessed when we're here. Kind of neat. So is there a fast way of going through and finding out what all the files and directories are? There is. We're going to use Dirbuster. It's not the fastest. It's not necessarily the best, but it's a tool for doing directory busting from OWASP, made to be easy and accessible to you. So let's put in our URL. Let's do http://demo.ine.local. I'm going to keep almost all of the defaults. Yeah, 10 threads is fine. Now we're going to find our source. And it said to use the user share. So go to root, user, share. I'm sharing this tab, right? Yeah. Go all the way down to the end for word lists, and word list dirb common.txt. That's trippy because Dirbuster right here has its own word list. Trust us. We're going to use dirb and common.txt. There's big, there's Katala, there's a whole bunch of great word lists that come from things. We're going to use dirb's common word list. Select that list. Boom. User share word list dirb common.txt. Voila. And we're going to keep everything else default. Start at the root. File extensions we're looking for are PHP. Otherwise, they're directories. And go. And it's scanning. So it's trying to find it's doing what we did, like right here, where I just put in things like robots.txt. Oh, hey, it found something. Well, Dirbuster is doing what I just did, except it's doing it with 10 threads at a time. And whatever results it gets back, it is populating this little list right here. And it's doing it based off of a word list. So I knew a couple things to look for, and I could probably come up with some more, but delivery guy. But someone's already put in the trouble to create a word list that has all this for us. What's our time look like? 9:21. Awesome. Also, this scan's going to take forever. You can see it down here. Time to finish is 25 minutes. But it tries different words. It's found things. It gets responses. 403 is like a 404, not found. 200s are good ones. So it knows that there's index.php. Cool. It looks at the size of the packet that's returned. Depending on what sort of error you get when you browse somewhere, you could learn a lot from the size, even if you don't get anything from the response. It's like a 200 is not that interesting. But if you look at the size, you're like, oh, hey, this is a whole PDF. Like if I sort by size, I find like some great stuff. There's that jQuery that's running. There can be some just good stuff in here. Well, one of the great things about having a very useful, well thought out GUI, thank you developers, is there's this tree function. It has sorted it out like we're used to with a tree. I mean, if you go into your files, you're kind of used to a tree, right? And I know Linux doesn't do it so much, nor does Mac for that matter. But for Windows people, like we're used to these trees. These trees are like, I like this. I'm used to this. I can do stuff with this. And that's great. Then you can go through and see if there's anything really useful, really neat in here. Like this HT password. Like, what is that? That seems like something I want to find out more about. I think, should I have gotten rid of 400s? That's probably fine. There's some errors that come up. There's the results. I'm going to try something. I'm going to go up to 30 threads. If you really want to blow up this VM and make it really unuseful, it's okay. It's running on AWS. So worst case scenario, we shut it down, get a fresh one. Throw in something big like 300 threads and it'll just freak out. It is not running at an amazing amount of processor power. If you know anything about cloud, that makes sense to you. But if I change this to 30 threads, then our time to finish decreases significantly. There's not a ton more useful in here, so I don't want to wait until the scan finishes just to show you like the one thing from the lab. Yes, gobuster works great. So, heck, I'm here. So there are a few things. Let's just do dirb. So I use the dirb word list. Dirb is a great tool. It's from dirb and it tells you what to do. Dirb, URL, word lists if you want them, and it'll go. But if you just do dirb, it's a little easier. Dirb, http://demo.ine.local. Runs. Boom, 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 boom. And it's done. And it found 18 sites, and you can go through here and it used that same word list, user shared dirb word list common, and it's done. Used 4,612 generated words. It came up with the root, Ajax. In here, there's images. I do believe there's a PHP my admin. That's dangerous. There's robots.txt. Good. Found that. And I do believe there is like a passwords, which is not great. And it found it in here, which is good on its part. That's Dirb. Let's do gobuster. This is Kali Linux, so it has all these tools. Oh, went too far. So gobuster. Similarly, we need dir for the directory or file enumeration. We need a word list. Let's do gobuster dir tac h. I always forget what all at once. Gobuster dir and then tac. Where's to tell it the URL? URL string. Tag you. // demo.ine.local. And then word list. W user share. Why are my fingers not working great? Dirb and there we go. Run. What does this look like when the blue side when it runs? Is it loud? It depends. Your web server is made to be accessed, right? Does it tell you every page when it's run and like whether it gets 403 requests? If it does, then you'll see those in your logs. If you have it set to tell you things, then it'll tell you things. But in and of itself, your website is meant to be accessible to people, and you probably are used to getting a ton of traffic. So if this thing pings it really fast with different websites, I don't know, you're probably not going to see anything. And if they're not doing anything malicious like DOSing it, that's different. But this isn't going to DOS it. It didn't go fast enough. So it ran. This took 2 seconds. So gobuster, it found very similar stuff. Here's that passwords. So let's check that out. gobuster is kind of nice. Like what it comes up with afterwards. Okay, there's a directory called passwords that has accounts.txt. And that's got like admin pass, got root. I think that's got at root, like the drink. Anyways, sponsor for cyber and security. So that's gobuster. There's many others. Does this have Pharaoh? Maybe. feroxbuster. So the Rust version. There's a Go version. There's the Python version with dirb. There's the Rust version with feroxbuster. There's many different ways of skinning this cat. They all run pretty quickly. Dirbuster is the only one I know with this pretty interface, but it takes forever. You could also do it with Zap and Zaproxy. This is going to have issues. It's fine. I'm going to cancel it. And I'm kind of done with Dirbuster. So it'll keep going and finding the things that we already found. If anyone wants me to show more directory busting, I could pop out Zaproxy. I could show you a little bit with Burp, but I think those are going to be in upcoming labs. Do you want that or want me to go forward? I think, didn't I do it? I did Burp last week. So I talked, or 2 weeks ago. So you can go watch that there. I think I also did the Zaproxy. I also made like 5 hours of videos for INE for the upcoming penetration testing student where I did all of that stuff as well. So it's both fresh in my mind and I can't remember what I did on stream or for work, but I did them all. Does that answer your questions, Taekwon Gon and Chris? It could be loud. gobuster does work well. And I think we've got half an hour. You want to jump in my ear? You can if you want, or you can just shoot me in text. Do you want to do a giveaway? You just let me know. I'm going to move on to the next lab. I've got it, so I can give it away. We'll get into some cross-site scripting. There's a lot of different web vulnerabilities. And if you go to the OWASP OGT, OTG, it's the OWASP testing guide. Let's share this. Yeah. This is the testing guide 4.0 for OWASP and all of the things that you might want to test for a web app. If you were to ask the people who are all about web app pen testing, this is like the guide. It takes you step by step all the way through, explains what OWASP is, explains the whole mindset. There's a lot of great minds in here, authors, reviewers, etc. There's the project, but eventually, where's like the guide? It's been a while. Soul testing framework, and there it is. How you would want to go about doing a proper pen test for a web app. So you could review the process, do a policy review, standards review. There's a lot of review that's in paper before you even get to the pen testing side of it. And eventually there is the security testing. And in here, there's exactly how to do it. So, testing for information gathering. Summary, what does that mean? What are your test objectives? How would you test it? With links to how to do it. Operators, tools, examples, exact walkthroughs. This thing is great. This thing is awesome. So, if you really wanted to get into web pen testing, that's the way to do it. I'm going to show you a couple labs to get you going. So, cross-site scripting. If you want to understand the basics behind it, read the cross-site scripting study guide, watch the video. I'm not going to reproduce those things. Instead, I'm going to get into the lab. I guess it didn't stop that Dirbuster lab. It's my bad. We're going to find a cross-site scripting vulnerability and exploit it using the XSSR tool, cross-site scripter tool. Something we're looking at. It's Adrian Cantrell, All the Things. That's what we'll be giving away. And Adrian Cantrell, All the Things. Adrian, if you're out there listening, if you're watching, thank you so much for supporting and supporting Job with Josh and Cyber and Security the same way you supported Cyber Supply Drop. Appreciate you and love that you're giving back and allowing more and more people to get access to your content. So, is the Nessus account found by the blue team, Dev, Null Zen? It depends. Talk to Stuns about that one. But it all depends on how you have things tuned. Nessus isn't necessarily doing bad stuff. It's running some Nmap scans, depending on what sensors you have out there and how you have them tuned. Maybe. And truth be told, you probably want it to catch things. That would be good. It's going to be a lot of activity out there, but it's not doing anything like terribly malicious. Cross-site scripter is kind of doing things malicious, but it also might not get caught. It all depends. And it's not a bad thing if it gets caught by the blue team. If they catch it while you're running the scans, awesome. Noted. That goes in the recommendations. If you can tell them wins, like, hey, you guys did a great job, then good on you. You will make your reporting so great. Here. Curious. This is what I'm giving away. From Adrian Cantrell, all of the things. It is all of his current content for AWS pen testing, or not AWS pen testing, AWS architecture. So, nope, it is global. Oh, don't give away all that. Pretend I didn't do that. But yeah, this is the course. And there's tons of great stuff in here. He's got these certified solutions architect courses all the way from associate up to professional, and some bundles with all of the things you get unlimited access to all of his courses forever, and everything that he adds you get access to. So let me copy this URL. The only downside I've heard is that he's got an Aussie accent, and if that bugs you, sorry to enjoy the free thing with the Aussie accent. But he's a great guy, and it's great content. I've heard some people who have gotten certs from these giveaways. So thank you, Adrian, and good luck to you. Get them to connect with you, Chris, and then I'll give out the code after the stream. After the stream, there's First Things First with Gerald Ozier, and I will be streaming that on all my stuff, not cyber and security, but all of my other places. Same place where I'm sharing all this. Jack Scott is doing an interview later today with Simon Lindstedt out of the UK, who has stood up InfoSec Live, and they're going to be talking about breaking into cybersecurity and training. And then Jerry's going to be on later with Simply Cyber on his stream, and he'll be interviewing Chip, and they'll be talking about the Ukraine-Russia conflict. I think they're going to try to stay apolitical, but talk about, okay, how's this going to affect you as a practitioner, as a business in the United States or afar, but how is this going to affect you in a cyber sense? And then tomorrow there's a whole 5-hour stream, again on Jack Scott's Outpost Gray, hosted with Simon Lindstedt, where they're going to be doing a whole career day. Tonight, Brian, I think, is doing D&D. If he's not, you'll see it on the Discord if you sign up for that. And then tomorrow night, we've got Jack, Sec IT guy, doing Tipsy Cyber. Find out all of this by subscribing, following, and jumping on Discord and getting notifications there as well. So we're going to use the cross-site scripter tool. We'll need a web browser and Burp Suite. And I think I've got time to do this lab. It is not terribly crazy. I can pick it up next week if I need to. 192. An mmap scan on the whole network. Cool. You can run that. We've got .3 on 80 and 3306, which makes sense. You're going to see something very familiar. Some people have wondered, why are we using OWASP tools on INE.com? It's because they work and they're free and they're out there. How much time should be spent on a topic before moving on? From Taekwon Gong. Great question. Let me answer that. And it all depends. Spend as much time as you need before you're like, okay, I get this. If you get it, move on. I like to just move through things. And then if I come back to a roadblock of like, oh, hey, you didn't spend enough time on that, then go back. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt anything at all. So that is my take. I'm going to use Burp and Burp Suite. This OWASP tool, give Burp a second to start. Sorry, turn it off so it doesn't interrupt. We should have there. OWASP 2017 cross-site scripting, and reflected first order DNS lookup. That looks good. In here, we have a, oh my gosh. Skewy is just not happy. We have this little hostname IP lookup. If you put like demo.ine.local, it would theoretically look up DNS info for you. That's what it's supposed to do. It's not connected to the internet, so it's not going to do anything to the greater internet. So it's not going to do anything. But if you look, it runs this PHP and it is sending out a request. What kind of request and what is it doing with that? Let's find out. Let's capture the outbound request with burp. Let's run this again. Hello. Put on the proxy. And it sent a post request. That makes sense. This is a forum, so it would send it as a post. The target host that it was going to reach out to is hello. And in this post, we don't know how it's going to process it per se, but this is the request that it's putting out. And I think I went through this with burp. There's different types of methods that you send with web requests, where you're sending it. This is the URL, the domain, your user agent. In this case, we're using Firefox. So it looks up like that. And we've got session cookies. Session cookies help to make all this work nicely. The newer version of PTS, when I do this, it's with an authenticated, and you need that cookie in your request for it to work properly. So stuns, if you want to ever get into that, check out the later version when it comes out. Hopefully soon. I just record the videos. I don't set the release dates. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Just look up. Sorry. If you're like, what is Josh doing? I'm looking at my cheat sheet just to make sure I'm not missing anything. So we've got this request, and it sends something. Let's send it to repeater and see what we get back. If we were to shoot it off, this would be our response. It's 200 OK with a hello, and let's search for hello in here. No match. Oh, how about 2 L's? There's a reference to hello world there. There we go. Results for hello. And it didn't find anything useful. But we see this request, so let's use cross-site scripter. And it's an automatic framework to detect, exploit, and report cross-site scripting vulnerabilities in a web-based applications. Great tool. Oh, hey, Brian Godfrey won. Congratulations, Brian. And I'll get you that code later. I know you're not going anywhere. You might be going to sleep. If that's the case, that's fine. I'll just DM it to you. Thank you all for participating. Yeah, saw that. Thanks, Chris. Well, for cross-site scripter, let's look at this URL. demo.ine.local, index.php. Page is this dnslookup.php. Cool. And then our payload is going to be target host equals cross-site scripter. And then to use cross-site scripter, you have to use this XSS variable. There's other tools that do similar things where they replace. This one replaces with XSS. Did I do Hydra last week? I feel like I did. Or it was for a video for INE. Hydra uses special variables as well. So we have this string right here. the post request info. And instead of hello, we're passing XSS. Cross-site scripter is then going to try a whole bunch of different things in there and see if it can find something that reflects and gives us some cross-site scripting. Can we put code in here? Can we put a script in here that will be run by the server? That's what we're looking for with cross-site scripting, is can we affect what is running on that other site? It's running JavaScript. It's running some sort of scripting, usually. So can we run our code on their website? Usually it's through like a misconfiguration, because again, this is going to get passed. It's going to do some sort of DNS lookup. How it's doing the DNS lookup, I'm not sure, but it's going to pass it into a function. And if you pass things into a function and you don't have input sanitization, then you might run some funky stuff. That's what we're going to find out here. Cross-site scripter is going to do it. Wow, that was fast. And it's got a payload for us. And it's a mess of a payload. Okay, it found this hash. And if we were to throw this in, I guess we would get something. So let's... try. So if we send that, then do we get that back? Let's go like 96-ish. Sorry, trying to find out where it works is always kind of a pain in the butt. Oh, we're not there yet. We're not there. Okay, so it is vulnerable. It found it using this one hash. We're not going to proof of concept that. Instead, we're going to run this tac auto. It's going to run as many cross-site scripting payloads as it can. And it's a lot. And it's going nuts. I don't know if it's flickering to you guys. It's flickering to me. You might not catch it through the magic of television, but there's a lot going on there. It's trying a whole bunch of payloads and it's finding results. Truth be told, I don't know if I want to wait for it to complete. Okay, cool. It did. It ran 1,291 injections. 4 of them failed and 1,287 were successful. This thing is quite susceptible. That's neat. Okay, now we will get into, let's do a custom payload. Cheating, so that I don't have to sit here typing and mess things up. So it's our same, kind of our same command so far. Instead of auto, we're running a tac, capital F, lowercase p. Then we're going to do the script alert one script. And for baby pen testers, for training, for examples, this script alert one script is a perfectly fine way of showing that it is vulnerable to a cross-site script. There's some great videos out there, and some really great bug bounty and pen tester guys have put together videos on a better proof of concept. If you're doing a pen test and you want to show why this is actually valuable to your customer and why it's dangerous, there's better tools to use than just this alert one. But we're going to use alert one. And if you're like, what is alert one? I'll show you. But let's just see if it works. Looks like it worked. Yep, congratulations, you found one possible with that vector. And here is our payload. So keep doing that. So let's take that payload. Let's go into burp. Let's go back to proxy. Let's put it in here. And now let's forward this request. Turn off intercept. And oh man, it almost worked. What did I do wrong? That looks right. Well, snap. Okay, it's getting stuff. Why is it not working? Let's try it one more time. Intercept on. Send a hello. Test request. Place the post with that. And then forward. There we go. Okay. Now we got an alert one. There's our proof of concept that it worked. That is cross-site scripting. We were able to use the alert function from JavaScript and run it remotely. That's not something that you want on your website. There's some input validation that we could include in there. Looking for characters like script. There's a whole bunch. Maybe I'll have Brian or Chris do a whole thing on how to properly sanitize your inputs. But yeah, Qui-Gon, Tai Quan Gong, did that answer your question before about how much time to spend on a topic before moving on? Once you feel like you understand something, if you can explain it to someone, if you can explain something to someone else, and when they ask questions, like you can explain through those, then you're good. That's, I don't know, there's not much more than that. If you can go and like do this stuff on your own, because like I could type out all these commands, but it just takes a second and I might mess it up and that takes longer, and I'd rather just copy and paste them for this live demo. But yeah. All right, you're good. We're gonna all jump in a sec, Chris. But I'm gonna actually probably end it here. If there's no more questions, then we'll do like a soft handoff. Go grab First Things First with Gerald Osher, and if you need the link to that, simplycyber.io/FTF for First Things First. It'll take you to his YouTube page. Or Brian or Chris, can you throw a link in there? Anyone else got any questions before we call it a day? Would Hack the Box be good for a beginner or intermediate? Taekwondo Gong. Are you asking, is it good for beginners or is it good for intermediate? Because yes, Hack the Box is good. They've made pathways and they've added an academy. It's a pretty great interface, I think. This is not Josh for INE. This is Josh Mason over at Cyber and Security. Like, it's a good platform and it's useful. And I used to have a subscription. I've been in so many PTA labs that I don't need a subscription to anything else right now. But yeah, it is useful, and I think you can get a lot out of it. And it's free. Go do all the free stuff first. Always. That's our second tagline on Cyber and Security. Do the free stuff first. Hack the Box, Try Hack Me are good. Pentester Academy does have free stuff. INE obviously has free stuff. That's what we've been doing all day today. We're going to get into the black box tests. I think the pace we're going should be able to get the first black box test maybe next week. And if you can do all three of the black box tests, you can pass EJPT. I just worked on some client feedback yesterday. People didn't do so hot on their first attempt at EJPT, and they were looking for answers. And the things that were bothering them are answered in two of the black box tests. So if they had gone through those and felt confident, to your question, Taekwondo, if you can go through it without the help because you know what you're doing, then you're ready. Then you're ready to move on. Use the help, use the solutions, understand them, watch videos and live streams like this to get it in whatever method works for you for taking info. Use it, and then do it yourself. When you can do it yourself, rock and roll. Cyber Lola, she last year was helping me do the write-up for Tribute, my room on Try Hack Me, and she wasn't sure she was ready for EJPT, but she could talk through like so many rooms. She was making write-ups. Once she got the hang of making write-ups, she was just knocking it out of the ballpark. She could do all the things. She just didn't have the confidence. When you can do the things without looking things up, when you're just like, oh yeah, I found this, and now I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to do that. Killer. That's exactly what we want to see. That's what we need in Junior Penetration Tester. With that, I will see you back here next week on the 10th at 8:30 for some more Java with Josh and some more Pen Tester Labs. I am going to start pulling some domains from this cast book once we finish these and talk through some high-level topics. I'm not going to go through the whole book because this has like practice exams and tons of domains, but things that are useful for you to take your cybersecurity, not just at the Sec Plus level, but higher. We'll dig into that. I got authorization to do some of the Blue Team Labs online retired labs. So going to do that, reaching out to Range Force and going to go through a few of their labs in the future. So there'll be some good stuff in here. And again, thank you all for being here today, and you have a great rest of your week.